right, lesson 5. This is going to be a very short one, I promise. We're going to do some very, very basic visualization with R using a package called Wordclouds to make word clouds. There's an example from the Text Mining with R book that shows you how to install it. Shows you how to call the library and then do a very basic word cloud using counts of common words. So let's go ahead and practice that. But first we need to go ahead and load this. So let's go ahead and do packages. Again, we can just install it directly from the panel here, or we can do install packages and then word cloud. As you can see, I've already have it installed, word cloud, but I do need to call it up. So let's call library word cloud, and now it's ready to go. All right, let's work through this example here from our Jane Austen books. We're going to take our tidy books that we tidied up previously. There it is. So this has 4 columns here. We've got a column for a book, for a line number, the chapter, and the words in all the books. We're going to do a word cloud. Oops. There we go. We are going to do a word cloud just for all of the Jane Austen books, just to identify some of the keywords that she tends to use. And in this case, unlike with our previous lesson in lesson 4, where we left in the stop words when we were calculating the TF, IDF values, we're going to go ahead and remove the stop words this time. We're also going to do a word count of our tidy books. And then finally, we're going to call a function called wordcloud. And we are going to go ahead and specify which words that we want to visualize. We want to specify basically how big to make those words based on the number of occurrences of those words. And then we want to cut it off at simply 100 words for our word cloud. So let's go ahead and run this and see what we get. And let's take a look at this. Oh, there we go. And as you can see, we can expand this, and it's going to adapt to the size of the pane. So again, we saw this in our previous lesson, most common words including miss, lady, sir, Catherine, etc., etc. So that's basically how the word cloud function works. Let's go ahead and take a little bit of a closer look at this code that we've been running. So as you know, with dplyr functions, we can go ahead and just specify the data frame up front that we want to use, and then go ahead and perform multiple functions on it. So in this case, we're taking our tidybooks data frame. We're using the anti-join function to remove the stop words. Now typically, if you recall, we'd have to enter our data here and then add the other arguments, but since we've already specified the data frame, we don't have to do that. So let's take a quick look at our tidybooks data frame. So as you can see, there we go right there. And let's go ahead and just remove these stop words here. There we go. So you can see we no longer have words like the, and, but, to, from, etc. And now what we're going to do is take that data frame, and we're going to create a new one that is just a count of the words in that data frame and how many times each of those words occur. So just doing some word counts here. So let's go ahead and just run it up to there. There we go. So now we have all of the words that are in this data frame and how frequently they occur. And then we're going to go ahead and take this table that we created, and we're going to go ahead and pass it on and perform a word cloud function on it. So you're going to notice right here, we're using this little function here with to specify that we're using this new data frame that we created to pass on to here. And this data frame contains 2 columns basically. We've got the word column and then how many times those words occur. And when we are using the word cloud function, we need to specify what words it are that we want to show in the word cloud, And we also need to specify the frequency that those words occur. Let's go ahead and take a look at that word cloud package and check out the arguments for it. So we're going to use the wordcloud function within that package. And we can see that the first argument that we need to include is, like I just said, the words that we want to visualize. And then the second argument that we want to include is how frequently those words occur. You can see that there's also many other arguments in here. We'll play around with those in just a second. But for now, let's go ahead and run this whole line of code. All right, there we go. So we've created our word cloud there. So let's go ahead and see what would happen if we tried to run this code just by itself. So, oops, remove these parentheses. There we go. So we got word cloud. We're saying we want to use the word column and the in column. Obviously, this is not going to work because here we had already passed on this information to the word cloud function through these piping operators. But let's just go ahead and show what it looked like as is. There we go. So obviously we get an error because it's not going to work because right now it doesn't know what data frame to pull this the words from and the frequency of the words from. So let's go ahead and show how we would actually be able to specify the data frame that it's coming from, and to specify the column that we want to use for the words and the column that we want to use for the frequency of the words or the value of the words that we want to use. So what we're going to need to do is let's take this over here and let's go ahead and create something called tidy counts for now. All right, so there we go. And we're going to store this. We're going to take our tidy books data frame. We're going to remove the stop words, and then we're going to create a new data frame that is just a count of the words in the data frame. So it includes all the words and the count of those words. And we're going to store that in this new object called tidy counts. So let's go ahead and run that. There we go. So let's go to our environment here. And now you can see we have our tidy counts data frame right there. Let's take a look at it. So we have the word and we have the frequency of the word. All right. So now what we want to do is, now that we have word, now that we have frequency, we need to tell this where the data is actually coming from. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and show you a new operator that's going to come in handy throughout the remainder of this course. So in order to specify the actual column that you want to use from a data frame, you use this new operator, which is just this $sign. So when you attach this $sign to the end of a data frame, and then you tell the specify the column that you want to use from that data frame, it's going to pull up just that column for the data you're interested in. So if we went ahead and just printed that out, we can see that now we have, oh my goodness, now we have just the words from that tidy counts data frame. And vice versa, if we did this to the counts, it's going to show just the counts for all of those words. All right, so now we have the data and the column that we want to use. Again, the word cloud function, it requires a set of words that you want to visualize, and it also requires the frequency or count of those words. So let's specify tidy counts and the actual counts of those. And now let's go ahead and run that again. And now this code should work. There we go. So in the future, when you are doing some visualization and creating some word clouds of your frequencies or counts, you will need to use this $sign operator to specify the actual column that you want to use for the words and the actual column that you want to use for the frequencies or counts of those words. And let me show you just one more example of using this. So going back to, there we go, going back to our book words data frame. So this was one where we tokenized the text. We created a tidy data frame of the Jane Austen books, including all the words in each book, how frequently or how often those words occurred, total number of words, term frequency, etc., etc. And there we go. And let's say instead that we actually wanted to use our TF-IDF statistic for sizing the creating the relative size of the words in our data visualization in our word cloud. And we could even go ahead and cut this off at 50 words. And let's give that a run. All right, there we go. So now we can see these words from the Jane Austen books that had high TF-IDF values. When it comes to the assignment, it's going to be described in the assignment details. You can use the word cloud for your visualization. If you want to copy and paste your data from your original analysis in a separate tool to use for visualization, for creating bar graphs or columns or etc., etc., tools like Excel or tools like Tableau, you can go ahead and do that as well. If you wanted to use this word cloud feature this word cloud package to create some word clouds for your visualization, I'm going to leave that up to you. And again, in Units 2 and moving forward, we'll be introduced to ggplot2 for doing some graphics within R, and then we'll be doing a little bit more sophisticated visualization with R. But for this particular unit, I just wanted us to focus on getting a little bit more comfortable with R and some basic functions for arranging and manipulating data, how to create a tidy data set in Lesson 3, which we covered, and then some basic analytical approaches using keywords and TF-IDF. So that wraps up Lesson 5 and it wraps up Unit 1. At this point, I'm going to ask that you check out our assignment details for Part 2. That's going to give a description of what you need to do to complete Unit 1. And then I'm looking forward to reading some of your summaries of the analyses that you do on some data sources of your selection.